Hello, and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Terri Morrow, and I'm here with Catherine Halecko. Say hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Usually on this podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Catherine and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. This week, Catherine is going to tell us about The Crown, which she has been watching on buses crossing America, and we'll continue on our West Wing watch with The Drop-In. But first, there has been a new episode of the Great American Baking Show, and we have learned that an underbaked tart is simply unforgivable. Johnny's getting real, you know? There's no more Mr. Nice Baker.
No.
So the theme of this week's episode was pies and tarts, I guess, and all the different ways that pastry can go wrong. And once again, I enjoyed the fact that these obviously extremely competent bakers really screwed up quite a lot. So it's not exactly the hyper professional we can make perfect things in the worst conditions.
Right.
I kind of always wish, especially on a show like this, why does it have to be so hard? You know, if you're going to have them make something that takes a long time, why can't you give them a long time? Why does it have to be, in addition to the fact that you're cooking in an unfamiliar place under stress because you're being televised?
Right.
And plus, hey, make those 10-hour dinner rolls in 2 hours. Or, hey, make this pastry in just barely enough time so if you screw anything up, there's no time to fix it. That seems unnecessary because everything else about this competition is so polite and not cutthroat at all.
I feel like that's why. Like they need to introduce some
gimmick
element of suspense.
I guess. And yet they don't play it up particularly. You know, it's just, it's like the least competitive of all competitions I can ever remember watching. Everybody has a good thing to say about each other. They're trying to edit in stink eye and they're just not finding very much of it because a lot of times it's just, they're not a particularly cutthroat bunch of individuals, I guess.
And except for the fact that they're dropping like flies.
Yes, what the heck?
First you had Antoinette, who had what they said was a family emergency and disappeared in the night. And then you had Michael, who Terri had expressed concern about his health before. He seemed to be extremely high strung. And he's gone. He became ill and disappeared. And that was that.
I miss Michael. I really thought he added a welcome dose of just morose terror to the whole proceedings. And I miss that. And I hope he's well, and I hope it wasn't like a ruptured ulcer or something that took him away from the competition.
Nice.
It's the way it's going. I think they each need to get like a week's pass. Like you can be sick for 1 week and then you can come back because I guess they have another.
They're going to run out of people.
Yeah, there weren't that many to start out with,
right?
And now there are so few. It seems it's just. I don't understand what the rules of this competition are. Right. I don't understand how they're conducting that. Was it the same thing in the British one? Is this just consistent with that?
Well, I don't remember anybody dropping out on the British one, first of all. I think that they only did it on weekends. So I think that they had a whole week in between to be sick and deal with family emergencies, whatever, so that they wouldn't necessarily disappear. Okay. I also do think they started with more people. Yeah. Because in the early ones, you would not remember all the people. Right. You couldn't keep track of who all the people were. So on this one, it seems like they started with fewer, knowing that they were going to have a lower number of episodes, right?
Yeah, I guess. I wonder why they don't space it out more, why they have to all like live together in one place while they do this, because they don't really make anything of that at all.
Right.
I mean, there's no hidden cameras in the living room while somebody complains about somebody else. So you're not doing the Project Runway value. You're not getting that value out of it.
Right.
It's just makes it difficult, I guess, for people to commit. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's, every week, even though I know these things must have been filmed quite a while ago, right? It's not live or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
In which case you also makes you wonder why they couldn't accommodate people who were not well. It seems like they could just, their shooting schedules, I guess.
Right.
But it seems like they've been hearing our critiques. Last week, Nia and Ian got funnier, and we were encouraging about that. And this week, I feel like Ian crossed the line of trying to make things funny too hard and into groaner territory. So calm down.
Right. He moved into like the dad joke.
Yes. And also territory. Last week we were kind of complaining that Jeremiah was a judge's pet. And this week he just wiped out at least 2 out of 3 of the challenges. So it's like, dial back on Jeremiah. You need some failure. People are being suspicious. That's right. That was interesting.
We might be the only people providing the helpful commentary that they need.
We might be. You'd think we'd get like some cookies in the mail or something. Keep it up. Here's a collapsed tart that we couldn't use.
Right.
But it still tastes good.
Here's the gingerbread shack.
That's right. Here are Prachi's crumbly hors d'oeuvres. Eat them over the table. Prachi. I do too. You know what? Last week you asked me who my favorites were, and I had 2 people in mind, but I didn't remember their names. So this week I made a concerted effort to notice everybody's name and write it down so that I will remember. So I would say my 2 favorites at this point are Prachi and Jenny.
Okay, and mine are Prachi and Jenny, and also Stephanie. I like her too.
Yes, I like Stephanie too.
She seems very competent and very
she does.
Sensible, but also not boring. You know,
yes.
she's got stuff to say, and those short rib little hors d'oeuvre things that she made looked incredible.
Yeah.
Both of her.
What I was thinking about Stephanie this time is that she looks like the kind who just quietly is proficient through 9/10 of the show, and then at the end she just blasts everybody away and wins. You know, she's not anybody's favorite. She's not anybody's least favorite. She's just kind of there, making good stuff, being pleasant, you know, proficiently doing her thing. And then, I mean, I guess she had some success early. I think in the first or second episode, she did really well with something. But, you know, she's just always pretty good. So I have an eye on her. But I was really pretty sure Prachi was going home today, and I was going to be sad. So
yes, I thought so too.
I was not sad that Ashlyn went home. No offense, but I was very surprised because she was the star baker last week.
I know,
and then she goes home this week.
And I rest on your laurels.
So it's like star baker brings no mojo with it whatsoever. You know, you don't get immunity. You don't get really, you know, like a peek at the full recipe for the second challenge. You don't get nothing. It's just like pat on the head. Good job. Next week you're in peril. So it's a very odd, it's like they're trying to be contesty in some ways, and then they're just not following through with it. So, you know.
Yeah, you're right. There's
it's weird.
They need a little more sort of explanation of how things work. It's almost like they assume that everyone has seen the British version.
I guess. Well, that must be it. If that's all the same as the British version, then it's just my lack of that. But it's just having watched so many cutthroat and rule-heavy American competition shows.
Right.
It seems weird that you don't get anything for that win. I mean, I guess on Dancing with the Stars, you can be at the top of the leaderboard and then go home the next week theoretically, but doesn't happen very much. And then you have the public
don't forget,
voting, so who knows what happens with that.
Don't forget that the prize on this thing is a plate.
A glass pie plate. Which may explain the difficulty in keeping.
Right. They're like, you know what? I'm out.
Well, we know that you have a family emergency, but the glass pie plate is on the line, man. Come on. Surely you want to stay. No.
Exactly.
It's been fun. But no.
But I'm going to go take care of my burst appendix. Thanks.
You just don't have that killer spirit. Come on.
So next week is chocolate.
We make jokes about this when we talk about it, like it's, you know, this competition and stuff, and that we should have opinions about it. But I have to say, overall, I just find it very enjoyable. It's perfectly nice and well produced, pretty to look at. The people are all pretty appealing, The judges are enjoyable to listen to.
Right.
It's just a nice slice of comfort food for whenever you get around to watching it on your DVR. It's like having a piece of pie in the refrigerator and knowing that anytime you want, you can go eat it. And now I will sit down with this and savor it. So
that's right.
Good job. I would like to see it. I don't think I really would like to see it be more cutthroat and more rule heavy and more competition-y. I would like it to be less competition-y. I would like it to be, we've just gathered these nice people together in a tent and they're going to bake, and then we're going to look at what they baked and we're going to say good job to somebody, and it could have been a little better to somebody else.
Well, then I think you should watch Martha and Snoop's potluck dinner party because there's no element of competition. I
watched a few minutes of that and just thought, I see that there is an audience for this, but
and I am not.
It is not me. But, good on them both for having the sense of humor to be a part of that enterprise. And sense of humor and lack of ego, which is not something I would have associated with either of them. So.
Either of them, exactly. Well, I think Martha knows that it's clear that she's the one who knows what she's doing.
Yes, but she's pleasantly exasperated.
She's game.
She's game.
There was a very funny Ellen DeGeneres clip with Martha, Snoop, and Anna Kendrick, where they played Never Have I Ever. You know that game?
Yeah.
And so they each had a paddle that had I never have and then yes I have or whatever on the other side, and she asked them questions, like have you ever been to jail? They would have to say yes they have or no they haven't. And it was quite funny.
Yes.
Anna Kendrick was quite amused by Martha and Snoop.
Well, from our American theft of a baking show from Great Britain to a TV show about that country, you have been watching The Crown, and I have not. So tell me about it. Is it everything you hoped for?
Pretty much. I mean, it's in some ways a combination of Downton Abbey and Wolf Hall, which I watched.
Right.
Must have been like a year ago, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
And talked about on round 2. And so it's a Netflix original series about the reign of Elizabeth II. Okay. And they just had one 10-episode series, and there are going to be several more. And they have different actresses set up to play Elizabeth as she ages. So for this round, it was Claire Foy, who happened to be in Wolf Hall, as Anne Boleyn. In this one, she gets to keep her head, obviously, as the Queen of England. And it starts before she becomes queen. So it starts when her father is still the king, and is ominously smoking all the time. And then, gets one lung removed and continues to just puff away. And the whole time you're like, stop, don't do it. And even they show his mother, Queen Mary, and she'll have like an oxygen mask that she puts up to her face, and then she moves it away so that she can take a drag off her cigarette, and then continues. So that's anyway. But it has some amazing performances, and the scenery and the filming is just gorgeous. I mean, if you just turn the sound off and just looked at the pretty pictures, it would still be satisfying, because they obviously spent like $1 billion on traveling to places and having these amazing sets, and the vintage cars and all the clothing, and because this one pretty much took place in the 50s. This series of 10. So it's all about how becoming the queen, changes her and affects her. There's also a lot about her relationship with Winston Churchill, who's played by John Lithgow, who just like, oh my gosh, he just hulks in there, and he's just so, okay, now I'm babbling, but he's incredible with his voice. And
I was waiting you to get to whether you were saying he was You were going to say good things or bad things?
No, he's very good, but
Okay.
he's very, Churchill, I guess, was such an extreme person to begin with. And so then he inhabits him in this way that's really, that at some points you're like, okay, this has to be over the top, but not always. He the second to last episode is actually very moving. It's where he's having his portrait painted, and the conversations that he ends up having with the artist who's doing it become extremely moving and deep. But then he decides that he hates the portrait and he burns it.
Oh my.
Yes. Spoiler, it's gone.
Wow.
So, and that, among many, many other things, apparently is fictionalized. Like, yes, the portrait was burned, but it may have been his wife who did it. So it's, and there's a lot more things. Like the last episode is all about Princess Margaret, who's the Queen's sister, and how she wanted to marry this guy who was like 15 or so years older than her and divorced, and she was not allowed to under the Royal Marriages Act or something. And so there's this whole thing where they said, okay, if you wait 2 years, then you'll be 25 and you won't be subject to that anymore. And you can marry him. And well, oops, after 2 years, well, there's also this part that Parliament has to approve your wedding. And so in the TV show, they make a big deal about how Elizabeth makes a promise to Margaret that she'll be able to marry this person. And then after this 2-year interlude, she gets additional information where it's going to be very difficult for Margaret to marry this guy. And they make it seem like, it comes down to Elizabeth having to make a choice between being a sister and being a queen. And she chooses to be the queen.
Yes.
And in real life, it was a lot more complicated, as I understand it, and that really Margaret made the decision not to marry this person. So anyway, according to some of the coverage that I have read, there's a lot of messing about with the truth or with the information that we have, because a lot of it is very speculative. I mean, there's tons of conversations between Elizabeth and Prince Philip, her husband, and Elizabeth and Margaret, Elizabeth and Churchill, whatever. And these are things that are not necessarily backed up with letters or any sort of data, so it's all speculation, and it makes for good television most of the time, although I will say it's fairly slow moving. So it's definitely not as soapy as Downton Abbey. Or even as something like Wolf Hall, which was not soapy, but there was so much drama there in the history that you didn't need to embellish it in any way. So yeah, and as always, I very much enjoyed reading along with the team at Go Fug Yourself and all the commenters. Yes. They had some really thoughtful things to say about it. So I would recommend, if you want to watch it, be sure to go and read the recaps and the comments over at GFY.
Yeah, there are some shows where that is sort of the enjoyment of it, is going to hear what people said about it afterwards.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, cool. I probably will never watch that. Not my cup of
it's not your
tea,
thing.
Literally. But I have been hearing about it, so I'm interested to hear that you thought it was worthwhile and enjoyable to watch and then talk about afterwards.
Yes.
For those of you who have Netflix and enjoy that sort of thing,
go
and have not yet checked it out, and you made use of the wondrous new Netflix download to be able to enjoy that entertainment wherever you were.
I did. It was very useful.
That is very cool. I have not had the opportunity to use that yet, but I am in favor.
Yes.
And we could use it, for example, to watch our episodes of West Wing every week.
That's right.
I could watch West Wing when I am somewhere out of Wi-Fi range, which is pretty much never. But theoretically, if I go to New York again and I'm in the subway, I got it. I don't know. Maybe the subway might have Wi-Fi. The PATH train did not have Wi-Fi. So anyway,
well, this way you would be guaranteed.
That's right. You would not have to worry about it. I would have peace of mind.
That's right.
I would know that I had everything I needed right there on my device as long as the battery held up.
That's right. It's always something.
Always something. Well, I have my charger with me as long as the charger is charged up. So this week on West Wing, we watched an episode called The Drop-In. So last week, Toby had the stuffing kicked out of him. This week, not a good week for Sam.
Right.
He spent a great deal of time and effort and refinement to make the kind of speech that gets people to rise to their feet in ecstasy afterwards, and then Toby conspired to add something to it that made everybody furious. So, and I had forgotten that nice little bit where Sam figures it out because CJ gives him the exact little sound bite that Toby did, and yet they had not been in communication after the speech. Oops. But I thought the same thing that they were talking about on the West Wing Weekly podcast, which is that Toby is a great many things and does many things well. Managing, not one of those skills. So I think that often happens. You put somebody who's very talented in a creative field, and then you put them in charge of people, and
right.
It's not always a good match. Because after he sort of manhandled CJ last week and got swatted for it,
right.
He now... many, many different ways he could have handled that with Sam, including, as they said on the West Wing Weekly podcast, saying, "You work for me, I don't want to hear your objections."
Right.
But really, he didn't want to hear Sam's objections because he knew Sam was right. And so, therefore, he just wants to do what he politically wants to do and not have to have somebody throwing darts at his conscience. So that was hard to watch, I felt. Because everybody but Sam knows from almost the very beginning how horribly this is going to go wrong, and yet he keeps being excited about it.
Right. And that was a fun little scene with Ginger that they called out later on the podcast because they had the actress who played Ginger. And this is the 12th draft. Whether it's the last one is really up to you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Exhausted people. That was, I really enjoyed hearing her story. That was really fun. That she had just started as a stand-in. She was just there, and they called her on to read something, and then they gave her this character, which turned out to be a recurring character.
Right.
All the way till the end, I believe. So, just one of those people who never gets really all that much to do, but it gives the place a lived-in feeling that you recognize the people.
Recognize her.
Yeah, yeah. So that was very cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad they got a chance to talk to her. And what did you think of the episode overall?
This wasn't one of the ones that stands out, I don't think. Although it does have Lord John Marbury, who's always entertaining.
I do enjoy him. I take their note on West Wing Weekly podcast that he's really a terrible sexist workplace harasser and should not be enjoyed by all of the women. But, sometimes you just like a scoundrel. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
Though I think Donna should probably not wait for the 5-year-old.
No. Donna has more to offer than that. She should have more confidence in herself.
She really should. But yes, I always enjoy him. He's on at least a few more episodes.
Yes.
Than this.
And
a recurring figure.
And the scene with CJ talking with Corey Sykes was really, as they also mentioned on the podcast, was really well done.
Yeah.
Just, two smart people having a conversation and, parrying each other's statements. Although I feel like he got the better of CJ, and he was very generous to agree to her.
He really was.
Her request.
Yeah. Another one of those situations where it's a little mismatched because, as with Sam and Toby too, is Toby knows the things Sam is saying are not wrong from a idealistic point of view. They're just politics requires something different. And it's the same with CJ. Clearly it was not handled well, but it was handled the only way they could handle it politically. Right. So it's our ideals being chipped away little by the monster of politics. That's we'll continue with the rest of the season. But spoiler alert, politics doesn't get any more idealistic.
No.
This doesn't suddenly turn into a different show. But, yeah, so that was a little, it was so funny. I was like, I was watching this on my phone, so it's not always really clear to me who is in any given scene. I'm squinting at that guy. Who is that? I recognize that. Who is that? And I looked it up. Rocky Carroll is like now the head of NCIS. That's where I see him all the time. And it's like 1,000 degrees away from a stand-up comic character.
Right.
It's like, wow, he's doing good. Go Rocky Carroll.
That guy.
Doing something other than coming in for 5 minutes and saying no to something that Gibbs wants.
Right.
Now, he's had showcase episodes on that show, but mostly he's just a guy behind a desk. So It was funny to see that. He was very good.
Yeah, he was good. So next time on the West Wing Weekly, they are going to not watch an episode, I believe, but they're going to have a big block of cheese episode where people can ask questions.
That should be. I'm getting the impression that things are. I haven't been on the website for the West Wing Weekly, but I'm getting the impression it's getting testy there. Horatio has been saying stuff on Twitter like that he is traumatized by going on that site and looking at the comments. I think people are getting angry about the way things are being done on the podcast, which, there are other West Wing podcasts. There are other podcasts entirely. If somebody is making you something every week, enjoy it or take it out of your queue. Yeah. Don't be yelling at people for the way they're doing their thing. I don't get that. I mean, we can come on here and complain. This is our little place to complain. You don't go to somebody else's house and complain. There's something about pop culture stuff that people feel that if you disagree with them or do something different than the way they would do it, it is a personal affront to them. You see this a lot. People who write about pop culture saying, people say things in the comments. I think Linda Holmes she shut down comments on her blog, or she doesn't read them anymore. She used to engage, and there used to be a lot of cute and wonderful comments there. And then there would be people coming in and saying, why does NPR publish this crap? Or why did you... And, I get that one likes to have one's opinion reinforced. That feels really good, especially to have it reinforced by people you like and respect. But if they don't, it's not because they want to upset you. It doesn't. We'll take it so personally. Right. But fortunately, nobody listens to this podcast, so we never hear any complaints. That's the way we like it.
We're just doing it perfectly.
A lot to be said for obscurity. Just the voice in my head that goes, did you really say that? Did you mean it that way? Maybe you should go back and edit that.
Which we know you have the power to do.
I have the power to do, yes. Let me just let you know, listeners, never believe anything you hear, because I have discovered how incredibly easy it is to completely change audio around, to have it say something different than what it said. So if somebody as inept as I can do it, experts would be dangerous.
Imagine the pros.
But we are going to take a week off from all of that. And since the West Wing Weekly is taking a week off, and since we need a break, we're going to take a week off next week and come back to you the week after that, the first week of 2017. We will be back with talk about the Great American Baking Show, which will be doing chocolate, and the West Wing Weekly, the West Wing episode, Bartlett's Third State of the Union. And a third topic that we will figure out within the next 2 weeks. We will try to consume something so that we can talk to you about it.
That's right.
In a way that will amuse and delight you and not outrage you, theoretically. And that is going to be it for this round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes, including our daily speed rounds and weekly group chats. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Goodbye, Catherine.
Bye, Terri.
Goodbye, everybody.